Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, 3M, and by Die Hard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Welcome, everyone, to MotorWeek podcast number 90, the big 90. I am John Davis, and sitting around our MotorWeek table here in Studio C at MotorWeek Central is our producer, writer, and two-wheeling reporter, Brian Robinson.
Hello.
Our road test producer, Ben Davis.
Greetings.
Writer, Patrick Lucas.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, can you say that any softer, Patrick? And our assistant producer, Greg Carlos.
All right.
Thank you, Greg. At least somebody heard you. Okay, let's speak up. We got a charged-up show for you today. We're going to have our lightning round a little bit later on, and we're also going to dip into our mailbag for a general question that we've gotten from a lot of our viewers. But first, we've got 4 cars we want to cover, cars that we've recently had exposure to here at MotorWeek, and we're going to start with a really grand one. How you like that play on words? The BMW M6 Gran Coupe. Okay. Really delightful car. Take it away, guys.
What?
I'm going to take the negative on this one, so if anybody wants to go first with the positive.
Spare me.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting burnt out on the M cars lately, but as great a car as the M6 is, I would much rather have the Coupe over the Gran Coupe. I'm not sure. They've already got a sedan. They've already got a coupe.
Explain the difference. A lot of people that aren't BMW aficionados don't really understand the difference between a Gran Coupe and a
that
coupe.
makes 2 of us, but I think the Gran Coupe just has
they squeeze 2 doors in.
It's 4 doors.
It's a
versus
4-door
2-door
with a coupe-like style, which seems to be a very European thing.
Yeah, it's like the 6 Series was like a coupe version of the 5 Series,
which
and then
was
they
a
made
sedan.
and then they made it back into a 4-door. Yeah. They made the coupe back into a 4-door, but still want to call it a coupe.
And they're going to do the same thing with the new 4 Series.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I want to go on record and say that I like the look of the Gran Coupe better than the regular 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks better.
I think it's a better looking
I think
car.
I think it looks a lot better with 4 doors and still that coupe body style.
I think the regular 6 looks real chunky in the
exactly.
back.
I agree.
I like them chunky.
Driving. What about the driving aspect?
It's got plenty of power. I mean, it's an M car for sure. It overloads you with power.
You'd be lucky if it lets you use it, though. I mean, it has a problem. It won't let you. It
has a problem.
It's like an overbearing mother where you have all this power, but you can't really use it. Where, say, other cars.
I want to be king of the world, but you won't let me, Mom.
Other cars are more like, if you have a drunk mom smoking cigarettes and go off and do what you want with all that power.
We're going to get letters on you.
BMW is not like that. They make it impossible to activate the launch mode. And then everything is so computer controlled, and you're so kind of, in my opinion, you're so far from the raw feel of a car with that much power. It's just overdone. It's technology for technology's sake.
So
where
much weight, too.
They're getting away from the experience of ultimate
a
driving and making it just a computer-controlled nightmare.
It's really annoying when you got to be so light with your throttle let on. I mean,
found that one.
Because if you do any sudden movements with your right foot, I mean, you're seeing that orange light start flashing, and that annoys me personally. But yeah, it likes to spin the rear wheels, but. I'll get back to the styling again. I love the way it looks.
One of the problems I think that they're boxed into, and they're not alone. I think other luxury brands are the same. Is that these days the luxury buyers got all the luxury they want. They want the sophistication, and they actually like knowing they've got all these bells and whistles along with plenty of power. And when they get them, every time you add them on, it sort of takes some of the character of the car away. And I don't know where the end result solution is. So I know around this table, when we get into something that's like a bare bones sports car or hop into a Miata or something, you're thinking, wow, this is really fun.
Yeah.
BMW seems to be
usable.
sucked in that hole more than other people, though. I mean,
they are a technology company.
Yeah.
Usable horsepower versus.
But it was to me, it's a beautiful car, and it was a pleasure to drive. But there are other M cars I'd probably opt for before this.
What about an Audi S7? Would you take it over that, or Would you take an Audi S7?
Good question.
That's a very good question, and I think I'd take an Audi S7 over it for the very simple reason the Audi feels lighter to me. It feels a little more agile.
Won't we be comparing it to the RS7?
RS7, yeah.
I haven't driven that.
Or Panamera for that reason.
Yeah, that's a tough call. When you get to that rarefied atmosphere, there are quite a few choices.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give up 100 horsepower on the S7 just to have that interior over the M6's interior.
The Audi does have the interiors nailed. That's a good one. Although if you put it up against the base Panamera, I'd probably take the base Panamera just because it's a Porsche. And moving on to Mercedes-Benz GLK250 BlueTEC. Okay, we like the GLK, their smallest crossover utility. When we tested it earlier, now they've added an engine, but it's not just any old BlueTEC engine.
The previous one didn't have an engine at all?
Well, they've added a diesel engine. Okay. Thank you, Brian. Tell us what's the difference about this BlueTEC from other BlueTECs we've tried.
That's their all-new 2.1 liter, which...
How many cylinders?
What's that?
How many cylinders?
It's an i4.
Oh, okay.
With dual overhead cams.
Give him a T-shirt.
Variable valve timing.
Versus a 6.
The whole deal. Yeah. Like 360-some, 69, 360-some pound-feet of torque.
369, yes.
There you go.
Pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing, really.
Yeah. Smooth, too, for diesel.
When you drove it, what was your first sensation?
You're talking me personally?
Yes.
We're getting personal?
Yeah.
Are you talking about in reference to the engine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it hops off the line, but unlike a lot of diesels, I mean, it wasn't just like all torque off the line and then relax from there. I mean, it drove almost like a gas engine, and that the power just kept on coming.
That's cool. I think we got the best fuel economy, and even though it's diesel fuel and more expensive, I think we got the best fuel economy in that vehicle on our loop that we've ever gotten on a utility.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Being that that's such a small displacement diesel engine, is that a urea injected system, or is it?
Yeah,
good question. I believe it is.
Yeah,
I believe it is.
I was a huge fan of it. To be honest, like Brian said, it drove like a gas engine. I honestly didn't even think it was a diesel until I got around back and saw the BlueTEC badge and all that. I mean, it
doesn't make a lot of noise.
No, not at all. There's no clatter.
We've tried that engine since then. We actually, as we speak, have the E-Class in with that engine, and I actually think it does clatter a little bit. It seems to be a little slightly noisier than the GLK. I still, when I get into GLK, my biggest complaint about it, and it's really not a very big one, is I feel cramped. And I don't know, it just feels...
It's deceivingly small.
It is small for the class.
It's definitely small inside.
All the numbers indicate that it's smaller than everything else in the class, pretty much.
And they're going to do an A-Class.
GLA?
Yeah, so something... And I wonder if that's going to be really smaller, but since it's based on an entirely different chassis, I wonder if it'll be almost as roomy inside, but just smaller outside. I guess we'll find out.
People that like small like premium upgrade, premium interiors.
Well, look at the Buick Encores. They can't keep up with the demand. But anyway, this new GLK 250, this new four-cylinder from Mercedes, is one heck of an engine. And I think around the table we all would agree that it's very impressive.
Coming in all-wheel drive standard and $500 cheaper than the gas V6.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why you would get the gas V6.
I don't either, especially since if you use Mercedes logic and say that diesel fuel isn't, it's priced similarly in most markets to premium, which you have to use in their engines anyway. It's kind of a wash on that aspect. Unfortunately, a lot of people still try and put regular gas in something that's supposed to use premium. But if you actually stick by the owner's manual, I think the BlueTEC's a better deal. Okay, moving on to another diesel, and this one was also got an interesting reaction from our staff when we had it in. This is the Chevrolet Cruze Diesel. And Brian, what's the real distinction of Chevrolet putting a diesel in the Cruze versus its competition?
I don't know.
It's the only
you wrote the road test.
It's the only domestic diesel offering sedan, isn't it?
And what does it directly compete against?
The Jetta.
There you go.
Ding,
the
ding,
TDI.
ding, 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 ding.
And that it's pretty remarkable given GM's checkered history with passenger car diesels.
I wouldn't have thought GM would be the one to go against Volkswagen on that one for sure.
And overall, they did a pretty darn good job. Darn, that's a new word. They did a pretty darn good job. It's quiet. It has good torque off the line. The car itself we've liked. I wouldn't say it handles as well as the Jetta, but it's very impressive.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I thought it was a little bit loud, actually.
I was about to
outside of the
jump in
car,
there.
it's...
It was loud outside the car.
Inside,
You're right.
inside, I think GM's getting pretty good with...
They added
with
a ton of sound insulation.
Yeah, they're getting
the
good.
Buick stuff.
Throughout the GM line, they're just getting really, really quiet on the interior. So that wasn't a problem. But outside, you're almost like, where's the truck? Because it makes that much clatter.
Yeah.
But it's still well done. I mean, I think it's better fuel economy than the Jetta, if I'm correct.
Highway.
Only
highway
the
is
highway.
higher.
Correct.
The city and combined,
But
what? or
More
less?
gears.
Is it?
I don't know.
It's just a 6.
It's just a
speed.
6.
Yeah, it's a 6
But
speed.
at first look, if I put it next to a Jetta, I'm going towards the Jetta.
Yeah,
it's just
definitely.
the looks don't do it for me.
Yeah, I think if you're driver oriented and everything else doesn't really matter, the Jetta is probably the car that around this table we'd prefer. But if you want a domestic brand and I think it's a cushier interior, and
Better ride quality.
Cruze, better ride quality.
I mean, the Jetta handles better. The interior's a little nicer, but I think the Cruze has definitely got a better ride quality too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot saying for this, and I'm glad GM's doing it. I just hope it's not the only diesel car they do.
How many do you think they're going to sell? Well, since we're asking personal questions, how many?
It's been brought up by everybody, including us. I mean, it's more expensive than the Cruze Eco, which basically it gets a little bit better fuel economy, but not a mountain bit. And it's got a lot of the Cruze Eco hardware on it, including the grill shutters. So I think the car is there more to make a statement. And we have to remember that GM does sell diesels, Cruzes in other parts of the world, and it's basically the same car. So it really wasn't an expensive deal for them to bring it here. But it makes a good statement. I'm glad they're making the statement. And, I don't know. Maybe there's people out there. There are a lot of diesel fans out there who have been waiting for something like
What
it.
do you think, Billy D?
I think a little piece of yours, a little piece of John's, and
He's
got
been
my
very
comments,
quiet
man.
through this one.
Just the Cruze Diesel. Yeah, I have been. Sorry.
Proud to be an American.
It's impressive that they did take on the venture. Although it's the same car, it's the same car that you can buy in the European nations and stuff that have diesels. Is it? I know there's a big thing with emissions and stuff.
Right.
Diesels over there. So it's taken an emission standard to a new level where it's acceptable in the U.S.
Actually,
now?
yeah, this is a clean diesel. And where a lot of the European diesel, people have asked for years, why can't we get the European diesels here? And the answer was they don't meet the U.S. standards, or there are restrictions because of how much they polluted, how many they could bring in. That was what limited Volkswagen. But this is a clean diesel. I guess they can sell every one they make. Okay, moving on to a fuel economy of a different color and another American-made vehicle, the Honda Accord Hybrid. Now, to set the stage on this, if you remember the Accord Hybrid of the mid-2000s, that was a V6-based car that didn't get particularly good fuel economy. It was very fast. This is a totally different vehicle. This uses a new four-cylinder engine that turns a generator, much like the Chevrolet Volt does, and that generator produces power for an electric drive motor, which is what turns the wheels most of the time. Only at highway speeds is the gas engine actually coupled to the wheels. So again, that's very Volt-like. It doesn't have a big battery, so you can only go a short distance in electric mode. Most of the time it operates in hybrid mode. And then you have the gas engine by itself at higher speeds. But here's the big news: a full-size family car, mid-size car, but let's face it, it's almost full-size. 50 miles per gallon in the city EPA rating. Pretty amazing.
And no gears.
And no gears.
No transmission.
No transmission. They call it a one-gear transmission, but basically it's a straight shaft.
Now, they've had the plug-in hybrid available
in California and New York.
Is this just that in a non-plug-in version, or is this a totally different car?
That is basically it. It's the same powertrain. It doesn't have the battery. I think the plug-in version is about, 14, 15 miles? You can go all electric. This is like a mile and a half, 2 miles. But it's $10,000 less. And yes, if you live in one of the states where you could buy the Accord plug-in hybrid, this looks like a step down, and basically what it is it doesn't have the battery. It doesn't have the big battery. It's got a small lithium battery.
But you can only go a mile to a mile and a half on an electric car.
They're saying a few miles. I don't know what if anyone's tried, but judging from our Prius experiences, it'd be like 1.5, 2 miles, something like that. Whether that was a different type of battery, but a few miles. And you can't plug it in.
It's the same kind of system, not the same system, but the same principle as like the C-Max, right? The C-Max hybrid, 2-stage kind of.
The C-Max hybrid
is more the Toyota system.
What? No, this system. This is more the Volt system because there's no the electric drive motor drives the wheels almost all the time.
Okay, I see.
Where
I'm trying to figure it out for myself.
Yeah, this doesn't. Where the Prius and a typical hybrid has a transmission where the two different powertrains work together to drive the wheels through the same transmission.
Okay,
the mechanical engine, the four-cylinder gas engine, has no direct connection to the drive wheels except at higher speeds.
It's essentially just a generator.
It's a Volt. It's the same principle as the Volt. The only difference really that I can see from a layman's point of view, I'm sure there's lots of them, but from a layman's point of view, it just doesn't have a big battery, so you can't drive around a lot on pure electric. It's just
so what was it like to drive there, Benny?
Comparing it to a lot of hybrids that have come through our door lately, it's much more refined than them. The one thing I've always hated about hybrids in the past is the regenerative braking feel. The feel of low-speed braking, or even braking at highway speeds.
You're being speeds being artificially scrubbed off.
Yeah, and it feels like you're stepping on a brick. Really, there's not a whole lot of travel or play or feel through a traditional pedal, but this feels just like the gas model to me. If you were to stick me in this car and not tell me, I'd probably have a hard time picking up on the fact that it is a hybrid because it does switch between modes pretty smoothly. There's no. At low speeds, there's a little bit of unique noises that rumble through there as you're switching, but on the highway, you can flip-flop back and forth and not even tell. And mostly the braking to me is pretty incredible. You give up a little bit of trunk space, but, I mean, for the MPG, it's worth it.
Were those realistic fuel efficiency numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to drive slow, and I was driving like I normally would, and I pulled around in the 46 range. I did mix.
Huge.
Yeah, for a car that big, I mean, you're talking Prius territory, and
it really is.
You're basically larger, and a car that everybody already is in love with. I mean, it's one of the most popular cars in the country.
Anything extra on the interior?
Aside from
Any
your
tweaks?
I mean, you got some custom lighting in the gauges and your hybrid readouts and stuff like that. It's essentially the same car. I mean,
it is well equipped, though, right? It comes like with the blind spot detection and a lot of other things.
And you got heated seats. You're not skimping on anything by going with the hybrid. I mean, I like that it's subtle. It doesn't really plaster hybrid logos on it, or the logos are relatively small. It's got hybrid-specific wheels and a little lip spoiler and the blue accents in the grille. But other than that, you don't make the pretentious statement that a Prius would or something like that. You can be green and enjoy the benefits of high miles per gallon without kind of waving that
freak flag.
Big
green flag.
Well, it's safe to say this one will do much better than the last Accord hybrid, which no one really understood what the deal with that one was.
And it also, I think, puts Honda back. Honda, after all, was a pioneer in hybrids, but then they let it slip away, and Toyota basically took that charge. This puts them back in the top of the game. I mean, a car that big with a city highway rating that high that apparently, is obtainable. That's pretty big news. So we'll see.
Bold statement.
Bold statement. We're all in for bold statements here. Yeah. We're going to turn now to our lighting round, and we're going to stay on this theme more or less of batteries and how they're changing cars. Today's lightning round actually comes from a viewer, Martin, who wrote us about the differences in EV between electric vehicles and plug-in electric vehicles and their battery life in warm and cold weather. He says his Chevrolet Volt battery range can vary almost 10 miles above or below the indicated range depending on the weather. He brings up the points that manufacturers like to hype the maximum ranges and capabilities of these types of cars, but rarely warn buyers about real-world conditions, scenarios, what their results may vary. What are our personal experiences on this issue with EVs, essentially, and how can manufacturers and journalists address this? Okay.
Your mileage may vary. That sums it up. Right?
Yeah, there's only so much time in a minute or 30-second spot. They're not going to go through the whole ramp.
Well, they can't. They're legally bound to tell you what the EPA mileage estimates and numbers are, and they can't do a whole lot more than that. So there is some restrictions when it comes to advertising. Our press material can usually tell you a little bit more, but the advertising is controlled.
Yeah, and cold weather definitely takes a big impact on hybrids. We've noticed that even electric cars that we've had in here getting not even close to the numbers. I think that's going back to the hybrid versus diesel argument. I mean, pretty much whatever hybrid we have in here, we never seem to get to match the numbers, EPA numbers. We're regularly below them, whereas diesels, we always match them, if not exceed the numbers you're supposed to get. And plus the diesel numbers are consistent all year round. So
the electric car situation is complicated by temperature. There's no question about it. The early Leafs, who used just simply a air-cooled system for their batteries, they had severe problems in especially cold weather, and they had some problems in hot weather with the batteries not holding up and decreasing in their ability in their range very rapidly. The Chevrolet Volt, it's got a fluid system, and some of the newer cars after that have got a fluid control system, and I think you can get a heater now I think all the Leafs come with a heater now to help them in cold weather. But batteries basically don't like extremes.
And not to mention, if it's cold, you're going to have the heat cranked, which is draining your battery life as well.
So. Right. So the answer to this is that there is no answer until the battery capacity gets higher. I mean, that's one of the attractions I think that Tesla is seeing with their Model S is they actually have large enough batteries that they can talk about a 200 to 300 mile range, but even in cold weather, it still has enough to get people probably back and forth to work, during a week. So our answer to you, Martin, is you've got to take the mileage numbers on these batteries with a grain of salt and recognize that you're probably going to get about 20% less than what it's even saying on the instrument panel on any day. And that's kind of, I don't know about you guys, but when I get into an electric car here, if it says I've got 80 miles, I figure around 50, 60, I'm going to start worrying.
We just got the Spark EV in, and that has that little confidence gauge, and that actually gives you kind of exactly what you're talking about, and it's probably no coincidence, but like it gives you the range, and then it gives you like 5 miles above it and 5 miles below it, and then it kind of tailors to your actual driving. And so it kind of does that guesswork for you. But yeah, I mean my thought is just that if you're going out and spending $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 on a car, which most of these PHEVs and electric vehicles cost, I mean, you should probably do the research on it. If you're going to drop that kind of money, you should probably do the research and know what you're getting into.
There's plenty of people that have tested these vehicles exhaustively on the internet to see how far you can go under different conditions.
The internet's out there. It's got it full of information.
And it's all true, of course.
Or you can tune into MotorWeek and find out.
I did notice the Spark was very nice because it does have your expected range.
Right.
Then it's got what you could possibly do if you drive like ultra-conservative and turn everything off.
Yeah.
And then it's got the range you have if you drive like crazy and have all your electronics on. It gives you a lot more information than the others seem to. It's nice.
And you've really hit another major thing. It's like it still depends on how you use your right foot.
And it even asked me, I got down to 20 miles of range on it, and a little thing popped up on the nav screen. Your battery is running low. Would you like to turn off the radio right now?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So considerate.
Nanny. All right, thanks, guys. Let's move on now to thank you, Greg.
That was scary.
And when my ear stops ringing. Anyway, let's extend this conversation and actually go back to what you were talking about, Brian, at the beginning.
Did I get ahead of things?
Not really. You touched on it. We get a lot. We still, even though the government has taken the official mileage ratings and constantly reduced them mathematically to make them more realistic, we still hear people most of the time can't get the numbers. Well, I know around our shop we tend to be able to get the combined number more times than not, and that's why we feature that on our test now. But the highway number seems to be out of reach. And just recently there's been sort of an expose going on how the automakers often, since they do actually most of the testing themselves, are getting maybe a little bit better numbers than they should be because their drivers are very, very good. And so they not only are designing cars to get better fuel economy, but they have drivers that are trained to get really good fuel economy. So the question comes back, what is a consumer to do? What is there? Should they look at one number? You got three numbers, city, highway, combined. Is the combined really the answer, or are they even going to get disappointed there? Where are we going with this?
What type of driving do you do? I mean, you should really base your numbers off of that. I mean, if you've got heavy highway numbers, then that's what you're looking for. But if you're always in the city, then I mean, you can't complain that you're not getting the combined rating because the combined rating is highway and city, a good mix. So,
but I frequently hear from people they're saying, I'm getting in the teens when it's supposed to be 25 or 26. And then, of course, if you go watch them drive, you can figure out.
Slow down and take all the stuff out of your trunk.
Even the combined rating is, 55, maybe 60-something percent highway.
Oh, yeah.
More biased towards highway.
It's more biased
cruising.
towards, I think.
Another good thing to do would be to take those flags off your car in support of your team.
What? That's sacrilege around here.
I can see one, maybe two flags supporting your local football or baseball team, but maybe the third or fourth one should be taken off.
You can't really go by any numbers. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't trust any numbers. You can go on.
They're good. They're good for
unless it's on the internet. Let me clarify.
They're good for a comparison if you're shopping.
Well, not even that. Because,
well, I'm saying if you're looking at 2 or 3 or 4 different cars together, at least it gives you an idea of where they stand.
If you go on like the fueleconomy.gov website, not meaning to make a plug there, but they have when you look up the numbers and compare them, you can click on. There's a tab there like what people are getting.
Oh, it's my fuel economy or whatever. Absolutely.
And people that own cars, they put in what they're actually getting, and you can see some cars that are actually pretty close, some are not. But granted, people taking the time to do that are probably people that are getting good mileage and proud of it. So I don't know. Probably can't trust those numbers either.
On our mileage,
can't trust no one. Lesson of the day.
Sorry.
Most of our staff does mileage loops on test cars, and we take off for a weekend. And
some better than others.
Yeah, some better than others. But generally speaking, I don't think anybody really changes your driving habits for those, right? I mean, we do them all the time. So
that's the point of the test, right?
Right.
Real world.
And most of the time, we're around the combined number.
Yeah, either just above or just below it. Yeah.
And that's why we changed our road test this year to start featuring the combined number and make the city and highway numbers smaller. So. Although I do agree with what you said earlier on that the
can't trust anything.
No, don't put words in my mouth. I do a bad enough job of that. You mentioned that diesels we tend to do better than the combined more than gas, and I think that's true. Okay, I think that pretty much beats the heck out of that subject. And we've used up all of our time for this week's podcast on MotorWeek. I want to thank our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, and our podcast producer this week, our own Patrick Lucas, sitting here at the table. I want to he is a great guy. Thanks, Brian Robinson. Thanks, Ben Davis. Thanks, Greg. And thanks, Patrick. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Be sure to watch MotorWeek on your local public television station. And if you can't find it, go on to our website at motorweek.org and find out the day and time. And if you still can't find it, call the public television station and ask, where is MotorWeek? You can also catch us every week on the cable channel Velocity. Till next time, I'm John Davis. Thanks from all of us here at MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, 3M, and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.